Well, you saw the thumbnail. What do you think this is? Hey, it's Ali. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. There is a worm in my head that is going, well, he's got that autism swag. You know, I'd eat a parasite if Laios told me to. Oh, sorry, I should explain. I have been reading and watching Dungeon Meshi as of late, and it's taken over. It's taken over. Are we surprised? Actually, yes. Laios is like this golden retriever, himbo energy man, but instead of being obsessed with fitness, he is obsessed with food. Like, you have literally created the perfect man. So today I wanted to talk about Dungeon Meshi, the show, the manga, mostly the characters. So if you're in for that, strap in. If at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe because I make videos like this all the time. And comment down below what character you want to climb like a tree. Is it Senshi? Judging by the newest Tumblr Sexy Man poll, I think it's Senshi. And let's jump into it. So my background with this series started when I saw a picture of Laios. Somebody drew fan art of Laios, and it was something, let me tell you. They drew him like slightly chubby. Like, it was clear he wasn't missing no meals, okay? And someone was like, this is peak character design. Like, that is what they captioned it. And in my head, I was like, well, who's this? Because it was anime. And I was like, I ain't never seen an anime character look like this before. So, like, what's going on here? Like, what's going on? So I clicked on the tag that said Dungeon Meshi, and I got taken to the tag, and immediately someone said, oh, it's a fantasy anime. And I clocked out. Immediately clocked out. I'm not a fantasy girly. I'm sorry, I'm not. I think you can judge by like this channel. I'm definitely more into sci-fi, robots, futuristic stuff like that. So whenever I hear the words fantasy, I kind of clock out, you know. But something in me told me to keep scrolling. So I kept scrolling, and eventually I saw more people talking about Laios' character design and how it is so refreshing to see a character that, like, what they're doing in the show is actively reflected on their body, not just in scars, but in the way that fat sits on their body. And I was like, well, why would he have gotten like bigger throughout the time of this series? And it's because the show, or in this case at the time, the manga, is about food. It's about eating. It's about eating in a dungeon. Delicious in dungeon. Like, crazy concept, I know. I'm not gonna say that I am a complete hater of anything fantasy. Fantasy just has a lot of a higher bar to like jump for me to get into it. Like, I was really close to getting into like Game of Thrones, like really close. Well, we all know what happened there, so that didn't happen. But like, I was really into The Witcher, like this show at some point, until that went downhill as well. Netflix, I'm begging. Like, I'm actually begging. So I was like, okay, we have something with a little bit of a gimmick here, specifically about eating monsters in a dungeon. So let me recap this show for those of you who don't know. So this follows basically a D&D party, a fantasy party of characters as they go into the dungeon. This dungeon is a mystical, magical dungeon. There's a bunch of monsters in it. And if you get to the bottom, you defeat, like, I think they called it the Grand Wizard. You defeat him, you get everything in the dungeon. There's like some big treasure, and you basically also become king of the land. That's the part I'm confused about. How does that make you king of the land? I don't know. I'd love to know about like the ecosystem going on here in terms of the overworld, because why does defeating the dungeon make you king? I don't get it. I don't get that, but it doesn't matter. That is like the least interesting thing about anything going on in Dungeon Meshi, right? So the whole point is that this party goes down into the dungeon, and Laios, the main character, his sister Fallen, who is one of the magic users in their group, gets eaten by a red dragon. Now, luckily, this dragon just woke up, or I actually just went to sleep. So the food in the dragon's stomach is digesting very slowly. So she is still alive for now. And the whole point is that they're trying to go safer. They go back into the dungeon. The thing is, though, you have to prepare to go into this dungeon. And if you don't prepare properly, you will die. Now, you can respawn, like there's respawn rules in this. You can respawn, but they don't have the time to like basically respawn. So they're like, we have to go back into the dungeon immediately. 2 party members dip because they're like, we're good. So we're left with Laios, Chilchuck, and Marcille. So the 3 of them immediately go back into this dungeon because we're like, we need to go, but they don't have any food. So they're like, how are we going to survive in this dungeon for what could be like a couple of days up to a week? Like, how are we going to do that? And Laios so happily is just like, food. There is food in the dungeon, you guys know. Like, it's the monsters that we have to eat. And at least the first part of this series so far has been basically talking about how to make certain monsters into food to sustain yourself in this dungeon. And that's also when we come across Senshi, who is also very passionate about eating food in this dungeon made out of monsters. And of course, Chilchuck and Marcille are like, no, we don't want to do that, but they kind of don't have a choice. So they're reluctantly doing this. And as time goes on, they start to realize like, okay, these are probably a lot more like, you know, animals that we have on the surface. There's just a lot more to it. We see it as gross. And I love this. It's a part of everybody's character design, but specifically the design of the monsters. We are told that they're monsters. They're icky, gross, blah, blah, blah. But when you really get down to it, they're just animals. They're just animals like a pig is on the surface, a cow, whatever. It's just we're so used to eating like those things and not monsters. Like you couldn't even fathom eating them, but they're really just like any other animal. And I love this show so much. Anyway, so at that point I was like, I'm hooked, I'm ready. And I started reading it. I stopped reading it, and then the anime came out and I started reading it again. So here we are. So I'm gonna go character by character pretty quickly here and just talk about how much I love their character design and why specifically their character design, despite being pretty plain like visually, really got me into this show. Like, I am not a fantasy girly, but god damn it, am I interested in how the fuck you can eat a walking mushroom, which is on my face. I kind of gave it a dump truck. I didn't mean to give it a dump truck. I just didn't want it to look like phallic shaped, and in doing so I made the sides a little bigger, which in retrospect makes it a little bit phallic shaped. You know what, we'll talk about this later. So of course we have to start with our main character, and that is Laios. And I need that man. I need him. He is quite literally the perfect man. I don't think you understand. At the beginning of the first episode, his voice is so deep and so serious because there's a serious thing going on here. He's talking about getting his sister. He seems like this brave warrior. If you didn't know anything about the show going into it, you didn't see any of the clips online, you would have watched the first episode, you would have seen him and been like, oh, he's like the serious anime protagonist. And then almost immediately going into the dungeon, you could tell by the way everybody else treats him, you're like, oh, he's silly. He's just a silly guy. Like, he's just a goofy, silly guy. He is quite literally a fucking goober. Like, of course, the team respects him as a leader and as a warrior, I guess knight. I don't know what you would call that. Like, he has a role because Chilchuck is the rogue. I don't know anything about D&D. If it's not obvious already. I don't know anything about D&D or fantasy parties or anything like that. All I know is Chilchuck is the rogue because I had to look it up to look up something for the script. So I don't know what that would be. He would be paladin, right, guys. I don't know anything about D&D. I'm sorry. Anyway, they respect him as a leader. They respect what he could do with a sword. Like, he's been the leader this whole time. They respect him. However, they do not take him seriously. They do not take him seriously, and I love that so much because we can have both, okay? We can absolutely think about like Naruto, for example. At the end of Naruto, spoiler alert, he becomes Hokage. And while everyone respects his title as Hokage and respects him as Hokage and the stuff that he does as Hokage, no one takes him seriously because he is not a boy, man, whatever, to be taken seriously. And that is this, like, personality wise, don't take him seriously. In terms of what he can do and what he can offer, oh yeah, you're a leader, take it seriously. I find that extremely fascinating. Also, as soon as this, like, oh, this is a high fantasy anime, as soon as that like veil gets taken down and you start to realize what the show is about, his voice like completely changes. It completely fucking changes. His voice cracks, and I don't know if this was on purpose. I'd like to think it was on purpose because it's fucking hilarious. His voice cracks pretty often when he's talking about food. He gets very, very passionate about food. In fact, it is one of the top Google searches when you search up Laios online. It is he autistic? And a lot of people do headcanon him as autistic because his like special interest being dungeon food, and not even just dungeon food, like the creatures in general. Like, he has a very special interest in dungeon creatures and also eating them. And yeah, I'd like to think so. I absolutely agree with that headcanon. I do think he is autistic. The way people like respond to him as well, there was one part that is like, I need to talk about this. So the episode where they are in the like ghoul area where all the ghosts are and stuff like that, and it's where Senshi makes the ice cream. First of all, that episode, they were talking about Fallon and how much like they all mean to her. And at the end of the episode, he's eating the ice cream. He's like, oh my god, this is so good. And Laios goes, see guys, if if Fallon never got eaten by that dragon, we wouldn't be here eating ice cream. And everybody's looking at him like, huh? And he looks to Senshi, because Senshi also got a little touch of that autism. And it's just like, you know, back me up here, because you love food too. So like, back me up here. And he's just like, maybe you should have kept that to yourself. Like, maybe you shouldn't have said that out loud. And he's just like, what? And in his mind, he's like, Fallon would know what to say, because she would be like, there's always a bright side to like a dark situation, you know, silver lining. But the way he says it and the way it comes out, everybody just reads it completely wrong. And granted, the way that he said it wasn't great either, but like that right there, I was like, oh no, this boy is autistic. He's literally autistic. It's so good. It's so, even the voice actor himself also canons him as autistic. At this point, it's canon. And so of course we have to talk about his body. Now, I have not finished the manga yet, so like no spoilers for that. I'll just be talking about mostly what is happening in the show up until this point, so kind of spoilers for that. But at the beginning of the show, you do kind of see him sometimes without his armor on, and you can see that he's a built guy. He is a very built guy, but you can also see that there is some softness to a lot of his body and a softness to a lot of his edges. Like, he's not super shredded or anything like that. Like, we're not giving All Might super shredded, super well like Hero All Might, you know. And so because of that, it is actually really refreshing to see like him, like realistic, as much as realistic as anime can get, right, about his body type and the way that it looks, especially as a character who don't miss no meals because he loves food, but also at the same time is very strong, wielding a sword, and is a powerhouse. A lot of people were getting this mixed up with him being chubby. He's not. He is a power lifter. If he were to be in modern times, he would be a power lifter. I would know, because I am a power lifter. And the way that both fat and muscle sits on his body is very akin to the way fat and muscle sits on my body. If you look up power lifter on like Pinterest, you'll see a lot of like male power lifters, not bodybuilders, power lifters specifically. You'll see the way that fat and muscle like sit on their body at the same time. And it's like, you can tell that there is muscle under there, but there's also like a good coating of fat like on top of that muscle. That's the type of build that he has, which makes a lot of sense for the stuff that he has to be doing in the dungeon. And it is just so refreshing to see. It is so refreshing to see. It just is like his body at it, especially everybody else's body. Like, obviously there's Senshi too, who got voted. He also kind of has that, a little bit more stout, but like still has that like muscle and fat like body definition. And he's a dwarf and he looks so good. Like, I don't know what is going on. Y'all saw I guess we can move on to Senshi now, but y'all saw the clips. Y'all saw the clips of like Senshi with the crotch shots. Okay. Like, I love it so much. The figurines that have been made so far, the only NSFW figurines I have seen have been of Senshi and Laios. So I think we're doing great. Senshi is definitely, at the beginning, Senshi definitely gives off those vibes that like, oh, I'm the crazy cool uncle, right? And I have so much wisdom and so much to teach you. But in reality, as soon as you like start to get to know him, especially that orc episode, you're just like, well, yes, he understands a lot of things. He understands a lot of social conventions a lot more than like Laios does, right? He is still very much so like a one-track mind about his about food, about the dungeon. Like, that is his special interest, absolutely, to the detriment sometimes of other social conventions, like him and Chilchuck, whatever they got going on. And so because of that, he does some things sometimes that makes you just go, oh, you're just as crazy as the rest of them. Like, you ever think anybody is normal? No. He is just as crazy as the rest of them. He keeps a big walk, like not a shield, but a big walk on the back. Like, you would think that like a character like him would have like, he's like a heavy character, right? I don't know the term for it in D&D, but he's a heavy character, right? So he's holding like an axe. And so you'd think the big giant thing on his back would be a shield, you know, axe and shield. No, it's a walk. It's a walk. And he, like, the self-preservation, I would like to know how many times he's died in that dungeon, because you would think that like all the backpack stuff that he has on with him would be filled with stuff to like protect himself. No, it's spices, herbs, pots and pans, and cutlery. Because out of nowhere, because whenever they're cooking something, they'll be like, oh yeah, we need a little spices, a little herbs. I'm like, okay, where are we getting those from? Right? It turns out it's all in like Shinsi's like little bag that he has. Pots and pans, where are we getting those from? You know? Shinsi's just carrying them all on his back. Like, All right. Like, he is not here to fight. He is here to farm and make bread. Bread. And I love his design so much because obviously on the surface, he looks like one of those dwarves from like The Hobbit. They're like super jacked and like super like ready to fight. And you're like, "Ugh." And then immediately you get to know him. And he's just like, I'm here to farm. I'm here to till to my little golem lands. Also illegally farming. He will do anything to just be able to cook and eat in this dungeon, bro. Why are we illegally farming golems? I love him for that. So next we have Chilchuck, and oh, Chilchuck, that's my guy right there. Like, that's my guy. That's my grown-ass man with a wife and kids right there. Like, I love him so much. He's like the straight character. So like, you know, you have the goofy characters and the straight characters. He's like the straight character of the group. He's not. I think they tried to show that with that episode about the mimics and how like he has this like burning hatred for mimics. And while yes, we got to see him like actually work and be in action and be like, oh, okay, he knows what the fuck he's talking about. Sure, he does. He may be the most probably like skillfully like good out of all of them, but like I just the way he was talking about mimics, like with that burning passion hatred he has, like don't worry, I know you. I'm clocking you just like I'm clocking the rest of them, okay? You're just as crazy as the rest of them. Why would you agree? Like, personally, especially because he's like, his whole character description on the wiki is like, he doesn't take any job without being paid up front. So why would he then go back into the dungeon with Laios and Marcille? Marcille has a thing, and we'll get to her in a second. But like, why would he go down there? This never really explained, at least for right now, why he decided to like stay with Laios and join them. Mayhaps you're just as crazy as the rest of them and you care for them, you know, little tsundere looking ass. Like, it's always the short characters. It's always the short characters. He is definitely holding the team's one brain cell though. He is. And the little dumb decision he made with the whole mimic like episode, he gave his one brain cell to like, I think Senshi in that episode, and he just made some mistakes. Okay, lastly, let's talk about Marcille. Girly pop. I love her so much. I think the thing I love most about her character is the fact that she is like the one who's like completely like, I don't want to eat like monsters. They're icky, they're gross. I don't want to eat monsters. I'm good. Like, no. And at first you're like, oh yeah, no, I get it. She's like the reasonable one, quote unquote. It's understandable why she wouldn't want to eat monsters, until of course, you know, Senshi and Laios start to really try to like break down that argument, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. No, I get it now. Like, if you know what you're doing, there's no reason, like, realistically why you shouldn't be able to like eat monsters. Why wouldn't you want to do it? And you start to realize through the way that she looks, the way that she dressed, the way she carries herself, her hair, which is very important to not just the way that she looks, but also her magic. You start to kind of realize that she is very used to a certain way of living, and especially the way she was raised probably instilled that into her, right? The elves seem to be like very elven, for lack of a better word, and very like kind of high, like, I'm not gonna say noble, but like just like very high, like, oh, we do things a certain way and these are the ways that they have to be done. You know, the whole episode with the mandrakes and taking them out of the ground and stuff like that. Like, there is only this one way, even if it literally logically makes no sense at all, and you know, comes at the cost of a dog dying. Like, we have to do it this way, and this is the way that it must be done. There are no other ways to do it. And the dungeon, her going through the dungeon is like such an antithesis of that, to the way that she dresses, the way that she looks. Like, she's the only one in like semi bright clothing, like she's wearing blue, and you know, her hair is always nicely done. She does her hair every day. Like, it is so important to her that all of these customs and stuff get held up, that when she goes into the dungeon, immediately it gets thrown in her face. All of this stuff gets thrown in her face. So she's going through, I would say, a lot of character development here, not just in like learning how to eat food that she's never eaten before, but like also having her whole worldview about this dungeon being shaken up. And of course with the orcs as well and all this other stuff, like they literally break bread in that episode. Like, come on now. Come on. We're on another level. And I love her character so much. And of course, there was her in Marcille. I don't care if it's not canon. Like, I don't care. I don't care if it's not canon. To me, there was no reason why she was like, before you even see the certain scene with her and Marcille, which you've probably seen on Twitter, before you even get to that scene, at the very beginning in the first episode, when Laios is like, I'll go into the dungeon by myself, y'all don't have to come with me, I gotta go save my sister. And she's like, no, I'm coming with you, I would do anything to save Fallen. Oh, you would do anything to save her? Like, to currently gushing about her, like, every chance that she gets, every time they talk about Fallen, like, oh, Fallen's magic was so good, she's so strong, and she's so like great, I love her so much. Like, I think it goes a little bit past just, oh, she's a great magic user, because on the very surface, especially if the first episode, like, she didn't say what she said in the first episode, on the surface you'd probably think, oh yeah, she's just talking about the fact that like Fallen is such a great magic user and she probably wants to follow in her footsteps, because especially Fallen does a lot of like pacifistic like type of like magic, and Fallen's Marcille, sorry, is like very like firebomb, destroy. Also, like, on the surface she seems very like poised and feminine, blah blah blah, and then you get to explosions. Gentle explosions. But it's very interesting that we get past that part of just seeing Fallen as this like, you know, nice cool magic girly that I look up to, and I would do anything to get her back. Oh, we would. Oh, I'm okay. Good to know. Good. I'm keeping that in my back pocket. So yeah, I think it is very fitting how me, who is very fantasy adverse, fell headfirst into the show. But then again, any show like Chowder, I've been wanting to do a video about Chowder since forever, but any show that has like such a reverence for food and an understanding of food and the culture surrounding food and why we treat food the way that we do, I think is I'm sold. I'm sad. Simply, I'm sad. So I'm enjoying my time with the show. I hope this, if you haven't watched it yet, I hope this was a very good like surface level of all the characters and what's going on in the plot. I didn't want to, you know, spend too much time on the plot because there's a lot going on in the show. There's a lot going on. You should watch it. You should read it. All of that stuff. Support the artist. All of that stuff. And without giving anything away, I think I did allude to the fact that there's probably a little bit more going on than just a funny food adventure, especially with the way that Laios and Marcille see the dungeon and the way that it is. It's not just about food, but it's about this whole ecosystem of this dungeon and, you know, the metaphors of eating and being consumed and being a part of an ecosystem and all this other stuff. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. So I really hope you check it out. Like, even in the first couple of episodes, you do see a slightly different version of these characters, and you're just like, wait, can we go back to that? Can we go back to that? Like, again, with the whole way that Marcille is talking about Fallen, I'm like, can we roll it back? Can we go back to like how you were talking about her like just a few seconds ago? Like, what's that about? So anyway, so thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you did, you are a real one. I just wanted to talk about Dungeon Meshi. I had to talk about Dungeon Meshi. I do. There's a couple of anime I would love to talk about here. X-Men 97. Kind of want to talk about that. So if you would like to see that, let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know down in the comments where you would draw the line at eating food in this dungeon, because I thought it would be at the bugs, and then I saw like Laios eating that like pretty patty, essentially. The fucking pretty patty with the like jewels inside of it that tasted like really sweet. So now I don't know. And then fucking monster ghoul sorbet, like that sounds really good. Like, I don't know, they make the food look really good. You know how anime food be, you know? I feel like that was also another reason why I got into the show. Anime food do be looking good. It do. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Love and peace.